President Dwight D. Eisenhower once said, "Farming looks mighty easy when your plow is a pencil and you're 1,000 miles from the cornfield." Well, if that's true, then the pencil pushers in Washington sorely need to hear from the people who actually work the fields and take the risks. That's why Farm Bureau annually takes a large group of farmers to the nation's capital to meet with their congressmen and government officials. Over 100 Farm Bureau members made the trek to D.C. to be face-to-face with their elected representatives and hear from other government agencies.
This is the most important event of the year. We can get a chance to bring our members to D.C. to be with their congressional delegation and not only just be with them, but to have a chance to interact with the staff that does so much work behind the scenes, to let them hear the issues that we're facing back in Mississippi on our farms.
The trip took place in November, and there were a lot of issues of great interest to the farmers in attendance. Senator Roger Wicker and USDA Deputy Secretary of Agriculture Steve Censky talked about international trade.
Americans represent 5% of the world's population. The 95% of humans that live outside the United States, we want to sell them Mississippi farm-grown agriculture products, and we want to sell them Mississippi manufactured goods. And I think it's a pretty good deal. We sell twice as much to countries where we have trade agreements. And so let's don't be afraid to talk about the benefits that that trade, that fair, free trade, makes for America and for American agriculture and for particularly Mississippi agriculture.
Trade certainly is front and center on everyone's minds these days, and we know how important trade is to farmers and ranchers and to our future. For many commodities, it's over half of what we produce is exported overseas. From the soybean industry, where I came from, we export on average around 55% of U.S. production every year is exported overseas. For wheat, it's 60%. For cotton, it's also a high percentage. And even for those commodities that don't export that high a number, we know that exports make the difference for farmers and ranchers between profitability and not being profitable.
Chairman of the House Agriculture Committee, Mike Conaway from Texas, addressed the group, telling them about the changes that need to be made in the upcoming Farm Bill.
It won't be the kinds of changes that we saw in the 14 Farm Bill. It will be more fine-tuning, but we've got our challenges ahead of us. But I've got a great team to work with. We're ready to make this thing happen. We've got the groundwork laid, and we're ready to go forward. Given where we are, if there are any remaining priorities out there that you haven't communicated to us that you would like to see addressed in the Farm Bill, time is of the essence. Because once we start getting things down on paper, it becomes more and more difficult to overcome certain things. And there are certain artificial barriers that get created that would hinder us from trying to address whatever it is you're talking about.
Tax reform is a huge issue right now in Congress, and Deputy Secretary Censky said that he thinks there will be an adjustment in the Section 179 expensing provisions, a reduction in corporate and individual tax rates, and a reduction or elimination of the death tax.
All of us know that farmers, the old proverbial saying that farmers live cash poor and die land rich. But certainly we know that that's true, and that the death tax can significantly impact farming operations. And we also know that a lot of money that is spent trying to restructure operations to try to get out of that, and that makes no sense. And so certainly we're hopeful that we'll get the tax reform and be able to get these things through.
There were quite a few people on this lobbying trip for the first time, and President McCormick says that's a good thing.
We want to show people Farm Bureau through a different light. This trip is what excited me about Farm Bureau, and it started my involvement. It's why I knew Farm Bureau is where I wanted to be 25, 30 years ago. And I think we've opened some eyes to some people here. They've seen our congressional leadership look at us and say, Farm Bureau is where I get my answers from on when I need to talk about ag issues. They have seen people that have come through our system with American Farm Bureau working at USDA and on Senate Ag committees and other places that they understand that American Farm Bureau, the Mississippi Farm Bureau Federation, is the voice of agriculture and how much impact that we have on policy on a national basis.
Bryce Riccone, a soybean and corn farmer from Cleveland, enjoyed his first lobbying effort.
I'm glad Farm Bureau brought us here and let us get us behind the scenes. Met some good people, and I know they have to go through a lot of trouble to help us out, and we appreciate everything they do.
Richie Bibb from Tunica wanted to make sure Washington heard that he wants cotton back in the Farm Bill.
Our main issue is to make sure that cotton gets back into the Farm Bill as a titled commodity instead of being in the outside. We understand the problems we had in the last Farm Bill with it being included in Title I, but we see a real need for it to be included in Title I, and also for the cotton ginning assistance program that we had last year to try to get it continued until this new Farm Bill could go into effect. We're still at least 2 years off of the Farm Bill going into the new Farm Bill going into effect, and the cotton farmer needs help now. And cotton is so vital to our communities. It is what employs people. It is what makes the jobs. It is what turns the products over.
The one-on-one connections made this week can make the difference between an issue getting passed or it just getting passed over.